Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to the office. I was super excited to be able to host Tableau User Group here because I love our office and I wanted to show it off. And um, we love Tableau at Spotify, and I want to show you all of the very fun and cool things that I have gotten to do with Tableau at Spotify. Um, so we will get started. And so I promise there's going to be a lot of emojis in this. So this is me. This is the emoji I identify as. And so I'll take you through a tour of my Tableau history. It all started out with a dashboard that I made about music festivals about 2 years ago that I entered into an Iron Viz feeder contest. And so I won that feeder contest, and I got to be a part of Iron Viz 2015 when it was hosted in Tableau conference in Vegas. I did not win. About a year ago, I created a visualization about spells used in Harry Potter, which got quite a lot of traction. I think Teen Vogue called me someone. I'm very popular amongst Teen Vogue readers. And recently, I am now a Tableau Public ambassador, which title just means that I need to crank out one Tableau Public visit a quarter and be an evangelist for Tableau Public. So I will be revisiting this several times, but Tableau Public is great. And so now, that brings me, in January, I started at Spotify. And so I joined a data design team. And that means me and my fellow data designers, we mostly work on designing internal apps and reports for internal consumption and use within Spotify. So most of the things that we work on are dashboards or designing portals that other people within the company will use. And I'm going to show a few examples of that. One important note is that we all have very different skills. Some of us are very skilled in D3. Some of us, like myself, are very skilled in Tableau. And we have some that are just almost pure design and UI, UX designers. So to get to the big numbers, on this slide, it's just showing off how we use Tableau at Spotify. So we have about 140 desktop users, of which 120 of them can publish to server. The other 20 could publish to server if they wanted to, but they just haven't asked me yet. We have about 1,600 users that have ever been on Tableau server, 800 of which have been active in the last 3 months. We get about 3,000 views a day. We do not have a dedicated center of excellence yet. And our Tableau admin is driven by our most passionate users, which has fallen upon myself. Before me, I think Peter had a lot of that. And we only use a production site. We don't use a test, a dev, or a QA site. So it's a little like Wild West, where our 120 people could publish whatever they want. But there's a lot of ownership on the publishers, and we have a lot of trust built in. And so our main data source that we all use at Spotify is Google BigQuery. And that's a cloud-based data warehouse. And it's great for holding large amounts of data and querying large amounts of data. We can connect directly to it in Tableau. And you can write custom SQL within Tableau even. So it's great. Google BigQuery and Tableau have a great integration. So a big thing that we do, of course, is we make a bunch of dashboards. This is a dashboard I made about the performance of A/B test within Spotify, or a more fun dashboard that shows the demographics that like to listen to Aha, Take on Me. And so these are obviously built in Tableau. In cases where there's a lot where the data is more important, where we want to show off these key metrics that are highly governed, we actually have spent a lot of time building websites in JavaScript using D3 and React to build this, which is our main portal for key metrics and KPIs. Or this content scorecard showing skip rates based on the type of play context. But one note about these things is that a lot of times Tableau is used when building these things as a precursor to prototype what these things might look like. And that is sort of this first example. About a few weeks ago during Hack Week, I spent a little time. I wanted to create a hack that let users look at past versions of Spotify editorial playlist. And so I used Tableau and built a dashboard where I mocked it all up to make it look like it's the Spotify interface, where you can select a playlist and use a drop-down filter to look at songs that were on previous versions, and you can even click and it will play, makes it look as much like a Spotify player as possible, and it really makes the prototyping experience great. And then I'll say one of the largest use cases of Tableau at Spotify is creating a bunch of ad hoc decks or ad hoc visualizations that are just copy and pasted into a PowerPoint. And because that's such a big use case, we're actually developing a style guide to help people make their graphs look a little better than just using the default colors and the default formatting. And so, of course, that means Tableau preferences files that have color palette and examples of what good style guide or good styles look like. So now we're moving on to more of the fun things that I get to work on. So someone chatted that, someone sent to the main Spotify channel that Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song was heavily featured in the new Thor movie. It would be cool to see how many streams that movie can drive. So I saw that. A few hours later, I built a Tableau visualization that shows that on the far left, when the teaser trailer was released, there's a huge spike in streams of that song. Later, when the full trailer was released, there were spikes. And when the full movie was released, there was a major spike. We showed that Tableau dashboard to social, and we got Spotify official Twitter account to create, and look, it's the exact Tableau file, just with some animation to tweet that. And so now I guess Tableau needs to create a cool lightning effect for their dashboards. And it brings to the first Viz tip, how I did that. One thing I learned is that if you save a sheet as a PDF by printing it and saving as a PDF, you can open that in Illustrator and get the path files. And then that's what we sent over to social so that they could create their content. Another thing that I work a lot with is the Spotify Insights blog, which is where we post cool things that we find or cool data stories that we think we should share with the public, because Spotify sits on a ton of data and we're a data-first company, so we want to show that off. One of those things, again, we're very collaborative, so most of the things that I do start with someone posting in the Spotify Slack channel about an idea they have. Does anyone have experience with map visualizations? I could use some help with a pretty fun quick hit project. And that project, and I said, Tableau can do some pretty quick drag and drop map visiting. Let's get on a hangout. And so that quick project was the streams of the song Total Eclipse of the Heart on the day of the eclipse in each state by every 15 minutes. And so this was maybe 30 minutes of working with the person who created that data to create this animation. So we showed that off to some folks, and they wanted to run with it. They wanted to post this. And so I cleaned this up. This is a GIF that I created out of Tableau that shows, as the eclipse was happening, streams of Total Eclipse of the Heart also followed. And so this was quite a success. We posted this on the Spotify Insights blog. It became the top post, and the data is beautiful. Subreddit, other news outlets started picking it up. And we think it was really popular because it was an animated GIF, which is obviously not an easy or intuitive thing to export directly out of Tableau. So here, sort of my next tip is how I did this by using the pages shelf. And you'll see I have it every 10 minutes is a different page. And if I press play there, then you'll see the animation happen. But to get that GIF that I want, I could do a screen recording, but I prefer to do it this way, where I go to each frame. I export the image of the dashboard. Frame 1, frame 2, I did it like 30 times. And then I went into Photoshop. I loaded all of those files in, and they come in as layers. So I now have a bunch of layers of all of my animation frames. I can create this frame animation. I can convert all of those layers into the frames. And now in Photoshop, I've built out, and I can reverse those frames and set the delay. And in the case here, I like doing it this way because now I can add a custom legend in the bottom right, which is missing here, but you might have saw earlier. Another fun thing that I got to do earlier in this year was about emojis. So this is an interactive segment, and based on these emojis, what artist do you think this is? Yes. And this one? Yeah, it's the Beatles. This one, David Bowie. And this one might be a little hard. It's a composer of a TV show. So it's Ramin Djawadi, who's the composer of Game of Thrones. And you'll see that these emojis sort of tell the story of Game of Thrones. So all of this was generated from data that we have about playlist titles and emojis that are in them. So there's 35 million user playlist titles that include an emoji. And there's some examples on the right. If we sort of map every emoji that appears in title with all of the artists and all of the tracks that are in that playlist, then we get this bond, sort of this association between the two. And if we do this on this massive scale, we can start telling some really interesting stories about our artists. And so this became a big Spotify Insights blog post, which I would encourage you to Google Spotify Insights emoji to find this blog post. It also spun off 3 Tableau public workbooks that we created and shared with anyone so that you can interact and you can pick an artist and see what emojis are most associated with that artist. So here's an example of me playing with this Tableau public dashboard where Ariana Grande emojis, I think Nicki, and we have it by country, so you can see like, all of these Western emojis tend to be used for country artists. And I clicked on metal, and it's a lot of skulls and death horns and scorpions. And of course, it includes on the top right a nice embedded Spotify player so that we can encourage everyone to stream the songs that are most associated with that emoji. We also made it so you could look up an emoji and see which artists are associated with that. So Kids Bop Kids is one of highly associated with the poop emoji. We also, so I said there were 3 Tableau public workbooks. This is one of them, where we have an emoji showdown between 2 artists. And you pick an artist, and sort of whoever controls that emoji the most, it leans more to the left or to the right. So Lady Gaga has a bunch of girls and rainbow flags, where Snoop Dogg has a cigarette and a leaf. And so I'm going to show off a bit of how I did that by demonstrating this other real-world message that I got on Slack that says, hey, World Emoji Day is July 17th. This was a while ago. It's coming up pretty soon, but is there something we can do about that? How about the distinctive emoji to each country in the world? And so, of course, that's very easy to do, and I will demonstrate all of that. And so, first thing, of course, I have to go to BigQuery. So I'm going to show off a bit of how I can use BigQuery. I'm going to navigate to my raw data, that 35 million playlist, the emoji playlist. I'll show off, there's the number of rows, 35 million. It's only 5 gigs. This is what some of that raw data looks like. And I'm going to write a query, and I'm going to copy and paste it in here. But it's basically going to aggregate that. So it's going to pick out every emoji, and it's going to count up the number of associations or the number of uses that country uses that emoji. And so my results were here, and it came back pretty quick. I tried to download it as a CSV, which I do oftentimes, but it didn't work because this data is so large that I have to actually create a new table. And so I'm going to be using Tableau to then connect to this table. So I hit OK. I've now saved it as a table, and I will hop into Tableau. So on the left, I'm hitting Google BigQuery, and I'm connecting. I'm signing in. It's very nice. I'm going in, I'm finding my project. This is where I'm selecting where my data is at. And at this point, I could also write a custom SQL here. See in the bottom left, new custom SQL. But because I already have my data, I can just drag that in. We always create extracts because of Google BigQuery costing for every query, Google will charge us based on the amount of data that's returned. So using an extract lets us play around with the data and use it in a more effective way. So I'm doing emojis by user country. So I brought out user country. I brought out all the emojis. And I'm just going to make a simple bar chart, very long. What is it? 78,000 marks there. So that's not really going to answer the question. So instead, I'm going to create a ranking. So I only want to see the top 10 emojis by country. So I create this table calc of rank. I make it unique because I don't want 11 or 12 if there's ever a tie. And I set that rank table calc at the emoji level. Of course, I need to filter it, so I need to drag that over to filter. And I'm going to set that to 10 because I only want 10 emojis per country to show up. So now I have much less rows. I still don't think it's the best way of showing this data. So I'm going to create a matrix. And by sort of moving around some of these pills, and you'll see Tableau is displaying the emojis. I set up the rank. I brought that over to columns so that it would span from left to right from 1 to 10. And so now I have a nice matrix of emojis. The one problem, though, is that almost all of the emojis are the same for each country. That's based on sort of the bias of popularity of that emoji. So one thing that we do, the next thing, and it's a trick that I use all the time, is to calculate the distinctiveness of an association. And this formula I basically copied from Wikipedia because someone in research told me that this is what I should use. And so I just copied it. I cannot teach you what this means, but the essential, the main part is that it is here taking the probability that the emoji in a country will occur together over the probability of the emoji occurring times the probability of the country occurring. And the rest seems to just be scaling it. And then in the bottom, that's what my calculation will look like in Tableau. Lots of level of detail calcs. So we come back into Tableau. I'm going to create a calculated field, paste in that calculation, call it PMI. And so now instead of using that sum emoji count as a rank, I'm going to use sum of PMI. So I'm going to do the same step where I set it up as a rank. I go in and edit the table calc. Just at the emoji level, set it to unique. And I replace that by dragging it over on top of it, set it to 10. I have to replace the discrete column as well. So now Tableau is showing, based on my calculation that I just used, the most distinct, which is sort of a hard to understand thing, but I'll address that. The first problem I noticed is that Tableau is not displaying these emojis very well. It's displaying them as a text Unicode, and we get new emojis all the time, and some browsers can't support all of them. So this is supposed to be a male gymnast, but it's actually, which is how emojis are constructed, these complicated ones. It's gymnast emoji plus male sign. So it's supposed to be one emoji, instead it's two. So I'm going to have to use custom shapes. And so I have about 2,000 emojis, and so I don't want to manually do this. And so my next sort of tip is going to be addressing that. You'll see all of this garbage over there. So the real trick here is that in my data set, for each emoji, I have an ID associated with it. And that's the sort of this agreed upon standard ID that each emoji has, this Unicode website ID. So if I order my emoji in Tableau in the order that the file names that I've downloaded are in, then when I assign that custom shape palette, or that custom shape, it'll match one for one. So I'm going to show off in my Finder what these emoji titles look like. So a Python script, I think, we ran a Python script to download all of these from the web. I put them in the custom shapes folder. I brought them in. I'm going to assign the palette. And you'll see on the left, it looks like they all matched. And in fact, they all do match. So 2,124 marks assigned sort of in a click of a button. So instead of text, I'm now going to change that over to shape. I'm going to drag emoji to shape so that so those images appear now. And you'll see there's no garbage emojis of like combinations, and there's families and all of these things happening. So let's see. The next thing I did, I brought out sum of emoji count because some of these things look a little fishy. While I want distinctiveness, I also still want popular ones. And so I brought out sum of emoji count to actually explore the data and see, look, in that case, that emoji was only used 23 times. So what I ended up doing, and it's a trick I always do when I want to create some sort of custom filter, I always create my calculation in the detail. I'm using a level of detail calculation to, for each emoji country pairing, count the number of emojis that are used. I'm going to bring that to filter, and I'm going to say I want to show only associations where a country has used that emoji at least 1,000 times. So I apply that filter to really bring out only the most popular ones. And so I'm almost there. The original question was like, well, let's see what the most used emoji by country is. This matrix is great, but it's not very engaging. And because this is country stuff, I'm going to make a map. So I'm going to rearrange some of these pills. I'm going to only select the top emoji. And rearrange these pills, bring in the Tableau generated Latin long. And I've now placed the top emoji by country. And you'll see Scandinavia really likes flags of their own country in their playlist. The United States is a little exasperated. Central America loves to love. So this is an engaging visual. I shared it back with the person that asked for it. We didn't end up making another post. We thought that with the emoji movie, emoji just like overuse. We're all done with emoji. So that's sort of behind the scenes of how I interacted and made those emoji vizzes. And that's basically it. The last thing I want to leave with is sort of a shill for Tableau Public. This is my Tableau Public page. If you search my name in Tableau Public, you'll find this, where this is basically how I got started with Tableau 2.5 years ago, making visualizations about music, about drag queens, about country, or about cookies and Harry Potter. You can really do anything that you're really passionate about. I would highly recommend having a Tableau Public page. It was also almost the only thing I talked about during my interviews here at Spotify when they were saying, hey, what type of stuff have you worked on? It's like, well, we can actually look. Let's open up sort of my most dashboard-looking Tableau Public viz, and we talked through it. And it was a really helped me there. So I wasn't monitoring time. Oh, it's cool. I can answer a few questions, and then we will take a 5-minute break where you can restock on beer and pizza if that still exists, and then Carl will be presenting. So anybody have questions about how any of these topics I covered, Tableau at Spotify,